The tropical disturbance currently over Belize and portions of the Yucatan Peninsula, now with a higher chance of tropical development next week once it gets to the Gulf of Mexico. We'll look at that and your forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas right now.
This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi friends, welcome back to Meteo Mundo. Rusty McCranie with you here. Hope you're doing well. Happy Friday. The weekend is here. Coming up in this video, we're going to get into everything happening across our area. We've got some active weather right now, including this disturbance over portions of the northern sides of Central America and the Yucatan. What's happening with it now? Notice there's now an orange area back from the hurricane center, so a better chance of development early next week. We'll get into all of that, look at the weekend forecast, and deep dive into your tropical development potential as well. You know, I'd love to hear from you guys. I appreciate our Meteo Mundo weather community. Let me know what's going on in your area, what the weather has been like. And we'll get this video started. First thing I want to do is take a look at kind of what's happening in the broad view. We'll look at the surface map here. Now, some things have changed since yesterday. We had 5 different potential development areas from the hurricane center yesterday. We're actually down to 2, but we still have an area of low pressure off the eastern seaboard of the United States and an area of low pressure in the northwest Gulf. Neither of those are now expected to develop from the hurricane center, but they're still causing problems. This one's bringing some very heavy rain and flooding to portions of the Gulf Coast. This one is going to kick up the surf and sea conditions across the United States eastern seaboard and into Canada. But again, those should not develop. There is a tropical wave just east of the Lesser Antilles that is bringing some very heavy rain in portions of those areas right now, including some flooding. That one is not likely to develop. So we've really got 2 now. The one again over the Yucatan and Central America moving into the Southwest Gulf, and then another tropical wave in the eastern side of the Atlantic, which will bear some watching as we get into next week. So that's the broad perspective. Let's get into what's going on right now. We'll start with our friends in the Yucatan Peninsula, Quintana Roo, on over towards Belize, Guatemala, and Honduras. These are the areas that are getting directly impacted by this disturbance. The X marks the spot. The broad center has moved inland. Now, again, this has not become a tropical depression. It's not become a tropical storm. It's still just an elongated area of deep tropical moisture. We're getting some good downpours, some good squalls. We're getting some breezy conditions. We're kicking up surf and sea conditions along the coastline as well. And it's just going to be a wet remainder of this Friday into Friday night and Saturday through most of the Yucatan, portions of Belize and Guatemala, and then everything shifts off towards the west. Haven't had the strongest wind gusts so far for today, but a couple of areas right around 30 miles an hour from time to time. It's really about the wet weather. I mean, easily getting some spots. 2 to 4 inches of rain, 50 to 100 millimeters with some locally higher amounts. You can see some of the showers near Cancun and Cozumel, back down towards Tulum, into Belize. Again, right where the center is right now, basically just south of Orange Walk, San Pedro, Belize City, Belmopan, San Ignacio, Dangriga, down towards the Roatan area, San Pedro Sula, La Chahiba, everything working its way off towards the west, with more rain developing here, and storms are getting going, and they're fairly hefty south and east of here. Look at these storms with more lightning right across the northeast tip of Honduras, coastal areas of Nicaragua. This will continue to develop and push south and west. More rain for portions of Costa Rica and Panama. This is just a very wet system, kind of elongated back right now to the south and to the east. So again, we're not going to see this develop obviously over land, but the Hurricane Center has brought that chance back up to 40% starting early next week as it emerges into the southwest Gulf of Mexico. And we'll talk much more about that coming up a bit. But again, these areas wet for the remainder of Friday through most of Saturday as well. What's interesting to note here when I go over to the water vapor imagery is we've actually had a push of drier air coming in right behind this. And so it's really cut off the rain just to the north and to the east. So places like the Cayman Islands and Jamaica and Cuba and the Bahamas have been relatively dry for today. A little bit of moisture here and there, but not a lot in the way of rain for the most part. Let's get back over to the enhanced satellite imagery. Just a few showers developing now at the hour over Jamaica, where it's been relatively dry, but we'll get a couple of showers and an isolated thunderstorm to try and pop up on this Friday. I'll say this, if you're looking for the rain in Jamaica and you get a little bit of rain today, consider yourselves lucky. This could be pretty isolated. A couple of showers trying to develop near Linstead, Maypen, Mandeville towards the Hayes area. Another little isolated storm towards Cambridge, but again, it's pretty localized at the hour. Even Cuba, which has always been very wet the last seems like several weeks, drying out for today. Same thing for our friends in the Bahamas. A few fair clouds coming in, a few isolated showers, but not a lot of rain for today, all the way from Walker's Key back down towards the Acklins, Turks and the Caicos, dry as well. A couple of showers and storms developing across Haiti and the Dominican Republic. They've been more concentrated on the southern coastlines of both of those countries today, from Lacai in the Haiti area towards Santo Domingo, San Pedro de Macorís, Punta Cana here on the Dominican Republic side. Notice that the clouds are moving from north to south. We actually do now have some surface winds out of the north, and I mentioned this in yesterday's video as well. This is a decent spin north and east of the Lesser Antilles, but notice that there's no yellow area over this. This is not expected to develop, but it is producing some fairly nice showers and storms and kicking up some of this rain across portions of the Greater and the Lesser Antilles. For our friends in Puerto Rico and the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, as I mentioned, we are picking up a bit of a northerly component to the winds right now. Take a look at the winds here just offshore from San Juan. It's an east to northeast wind kind of all day long. It's been fairly gusty from time to time. Winds in San Juan have been over 30 miles an hour here and there. We've had a few storms, mainly in the central and the western sides of the islands, from Cuamo, Uti Alto, Aguadilla on over towards Mayaguez. And again, you're going to see some winds coming in with these squalls hitting that 20, 25, 30 mile an hour range. We've had a few passing showers over the U.S. and British Virgin Islands for today, from Rotown, Tortola, St. John, on over towards Jost Van Dyke and Culebra, Vieques, St. Croix, all with a possible passing shower here and there. Nothing outrageous, but again, it's a bit of a north wind now as this has spun around. Same situation for our friends in the Lesser Antilles, the Leeward Islands. Go over to the visible satellite image here. You're going to notice there's a little blow up of some clouds over the Anguilla area, few lightning strikes, a couple of showers, again spotty in nature. St. Bart's, Saba, St. Eustatius, St. Martin, St. Kitts and Nevis, Barbuda, Antigua, on over towards Montserrat. The axis of this wave, look at all that rich moisture just to the north and east of the islands, but we're picking up a southwest flow from basically the Montserrat areas to the south, and look what it has done. Guadeloupe, Dominica, Martinique, St. Lucia. The rain and storms are going gangbusters right now. It's extremely localized, but look at the flare-up of storms and the lightning right over these islands. Again, not the entire island getting that heavier rain, but we've had some pretty good rain in Guadeloupe for today. Now, yesterday, our friend Chad Forbush has his sailing vessel breezing there at Guadeloupe. Took this beautiful shot, sent it to me, and what a nice shot again. This was from yesterday in Guadeloupe. They had a little bit of passing showers there. A little bit wetter for today, kicking up a little bit of those sea conditions, but that's a beautiful safe harbor there, and I appreciate Chad sending me that picture. You want to send me a picture from where you live or where you're vacationing, mymeteomundo@gmail.com. But again, wetter on this Friday across the island. Same situation for our friends in Dominica, Martinique, St. Lucia. Again, nice blow up of thunderstorms. Back to the enhanced satellite imagery, you can clearly see those developing right over the islands, and then everything pushing off towards the north and to the east. There will be some localized flash flooding because of this, and we're seeing that in Barbados right now as well. We have some active flood warnings as I record this on this late Friday afternoon in portions of Barbados. Once again, several inches of rain, up to 75 millimeters, have fallen in some spots of Barbados for today. Everything's so localized, but right over the island. Same thing for St. Vincent and the Grenadines as well. Again, a few storms here towards the Beckway area, back down towards Carriacou and Grenada. Again, it's all, very localized, but we've had some good, healthy downpours. Look at my friends in Trinidad. Port of Spain earlier today had a 41 mile an hour wind gust. So the islands have been walloped in a couple of spots for today. Again, is it extremely widespread? No, but you get the idea that this wave, even though it's not going to develop tropically, has brought in some very active weather across this area on this Friday. Now, this spin is going to continue to move off towards the north and to the west. It will still impact the islands for tomorrow and then lessen its grip, but a very breezy forecast is in store for these areas off towards the east. All right, let's get into the forecast, friends. Again, I appreciate you guys doing me a very simple, small payback, but it really helps out myself and the channel. Hit that like button for me right now. I appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed to Meteo Mundo, you want these daily forecasts across the Caribbean and the Bahamas, you found your new home. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for sharing with your family and friends, and all the ways that you can support us here. Membership, super thanks, and then the description below. All right, so we're going to jump into the forecast. We're going to take a look at the GFS model first. We're obviously going to be focused in on this disturbance in the Western Caribbean, Yucatan, and then into the Southwest Gulf of Mexico. So let me fire up the model here. I'll pull it out for an entire week and we'll get into things. If you guys remember a couple of days ago, I was actually very surprised that the Hurricane Center took this disturbance and just continued to lower its chances. If there was one outside of that non-tropical low off the east coast of the United States that I thought could hold on and potentially develop tropically, it was this one, all right? But the models have begun to ramp back up, both the European, the GFS, and some of the tropical models, the potential of developing this system once it gets into the Gulf of Mexico early next week. Once again, for our areas over the weekend, it's just going to stay somewhat wet, somewhat sloppy. So this is the remainder of today, and you can see that that rain just continues to spiral in. Again, good downpours, squalls, rich tropical moisture, isolated, localized flooding. Watch out for some landslides. Watch out for some mudslides. So as we get into Sunday, we'll start to see this emerge back into the Southwest Gulf of Mexico. Now, again, we have this non-tropical low here in the Northwest Gulf already, and this is just going to kind of become an elongated area and continue to feed in a lot of rain, and that's going to be the biggest concern out of this, all right? That from the northern coastline of Mexico into Texas and Louisiana, we could really have a lot of rain out of this system. It's going to be a potential big problem for us here, regardless of development. But the models are, some of them, trying to spin up an area of low pressure, kind of just east, obviously, of Mexico, but just kind of off the coast of Texas, and then kind of pushing it inland towards Louisiana mid next week. It's a possibility. The Hurricane Center, again, now has this as a 40% chance. So for, again, the Yucatan, Belize, Guatemala, Honduras, wet tonight, wet throughout most of Saturday, beginning to move away on Sunday, and then early to mid next week as it basically rides the western coast of the Gulf of Mexico, Texas, and Louisiana. That's where we could see this thing spin up a little bit more, all right? So monitor that situation for our friends in that area. But if you live in those spots, just keep that in mind. Now, the interesting thing is what might actually happen beyond this and where it might travel if the low-level center of circulation develops and can hold on. And I'll show you the European model coming up as well. But this could be very wet for the southeast United States as we get into mid and late next week again, especially if it becomes an actual tropical depression or even a tropical storm. Remember, Francine is the next name on the list. The other area way back out here, same one we were monitoring yesterday. It's just a 10% chance of development from the Hurricane Center over the next week. You're not going to see too much getting going out of that. Obviously, it's something I'm going to monitor as we get to days 5, 6, and 7. It could be making a closer approach to portions of the Lesser Antilles. But once again, there's only a 10% chance. It's very rare. Sorry, I went out that far, but it's just very rare for this time of the year to be seeing these systems struggle as they are. It's good news. We'll take it. But again, a lot of yellows, not a lot of oranges, not a lot of reds, and we've had no named storms since Ernesto formed on August the 12th. This area here, again, is not even being highlighted by the Hurricane Center anymore. This blue area shows you what could be some tropical storm force winds. So we could have some gale conditions towards New England and portions of the eastern side of Canada, but it's not going to be becoming a tropical system. And you can see that kind of wrap up and race away. We also have this kind of trough extending off the United States East Coast later next week that could bring some heavier rain towards Bermuda. And the question is, it's what we call kind of baroclinic forcing. Could there actually be a little bit of this energy moving in and off the east coast of the United States and potentially trying to wrap something back up once it moves off the east coast? It's a very convoluted forecast overall. The first piece of the puzzle will be, do we actually get a developing system in the Southwest Gulf early to mid next week? Let's take a look at the winds associated with that disturbance. We'll stay with the GFS model for now. Bring up the wind fields on this and just kind of show you again the elongated nature of this. But there could be some very fresh winds in the Southwest Gulf of Mexico impacting first northern Mexico and then moving right up the coastlines of Texas and into Louisiana. And again, you can start to see that twist beginning to develop here on the GFS model. Now, the GFS deterministic, which is the one that I'm showing you right now, so the true wrap-up here, today's the 6th, true wrap-up would start on Monday, right? And just to show you, it's a decent storm at this point in time. Let's get back out to the 9th. See those little yellows there on the bottom right-hand side of the center? Those are sustained winds of over 50 miles an hour. The GFS deterministic does have Tropical Storm Francine developing sometime on Monday in the very far southwest side of the Gulf of Mexico, which is why these areas need to pay attention. Now, the deterministic actually brings it back inland over northern Mexico and kind of just keeps it a wet, sloppy, very rainy system over Texas and Louisiana, all right? Still could be some tropical storm force winds, but potentially losing that center of circulation relatively fast. Again, if it stays offshore, it would be a stronger system. If it moves onshore, it would be weaker, but regardless, that's a very heavy rainmaker for those areas. Let me take this model out. One thing I want to show you guys here, if I take this out just a little bit farther in time, and hopefully it'll cooperate. Sometimes when I ask this to go a little bit longer, it doesn't. But I want you just to see here with this wind field, what it's going to do as it moves inland across the United States. If it can hold together, all right, here it comes up here. If it can hold together, could some of this energy actually try and sneak its way across the U.S.? Remember, we already have, that's our first system, but we're already going to have a fair amount of wind coming back off the eastern seaboard here mid to late next week. So it'll be very interesting to see if anything tries to get developing here and whether that can aid in development in this area. Just something I've noticed over the last couple of model runs. So let's look at the GFS. Now, these are the ensemble members, right? Remember, there's 51 different ensemble members. I showed you the main deterministic model. That was what you saw on my weather computer. These ensemble products are going to show you a few different solutions. Now, most of the development here, again, is right in the southwest Gulf and then just eking up the far western side of the Gulf of Mexico. Some of the ensemble members of the GFS keep it offshore. Others don't develop it, or others have it back inland. But again, you live in Texas and Louisiana, you need to monitor that situation. Might have a couple of other signals here towards Bermuda, but nothing of a very strong sense. I'm gonna let this loop one more time. We'll look back out towards the Lesser Antilles. The rest of the Caribbean all looks to be relatively quiet. So again, back into the Gulf of Mexico, that's our main one that I believe could become a depression or storm early next week. Now, we get a little bit closer on this here in the time frame. Again, development Monday into Tuesday, and then potentially staying a tropical storm. I don't think we're going to get any stronger than that. Strongest one of the GFS model has that pressure down to the low 980s. Could that be teetering on hurricane strength? Yes, but that is one of 51 ensemble members. So we're not going to go there yet. We got to see if we even get a center of circulation, as much as these things have struggled over the last month or so. But again, could have a developing system and a stronger one trying to ramp up just before landfall again, upper coast of Texas and into Louisiana. Now, the European model, and I'm going to let this loop one time here because we're kind of at the end of it right now. The European model, same scenario here. It even tries to develop maybe that northwest Gulf of Mexico system, even though the Hurricane Center doesn't think it's going to happen. But a couple of notes, most of them again, southwest Gulf, right back into North Mexico, Texas, Louisiana. Watch this bend around, and then late in the time frame, you're going to see more signals for potentially an area of low pressure off of either the northeast coast of Florida, Georgia, or the Carolinas. And you can see that again, and maybe that bends east towards Bermuda. So anyone in these areas mid to late next week need to monitor that situation as well. But just kind of a very large, kind of, a clockwise turn to all of this over the next 7 days, starting in the southwest Gulf, working its way into the northwest side of the Gulf Coast states, and potentially back into the western Atlantic. So again, for this area, the disturbance over the Yucatan. 40% chance of development as it moves across the Yucatan and into the southwest Gulf. So it could become a tropical depression, potentially even a tropical storm early next week. So if you live along the Gulf Coast of Mexico, Texas, or Louisiana, these are the areas that really need to monitor. Again, for the Yucatan and for Belize and Guatemala and Honduras, not developing, moving away from you, but still some very heavy rain and some impacts from that as well. So when we look at the tropical storm probability, again, we can almost discount this one right now because the Hurricane Center has a 0% chance on it, but we are seeing higher totals here. And again, this is a chance of a tropical storm, and the European model has it at basically 90 to close to 100%. This is not a depression. I'm talking about getting a named storm in the southwest Gulf of Mexico, and the Hurricane Center has that as a high probability. The European model has that as a high probability, all right? So we could have Francine as a possibility, southwest Gulf of Mexico early next week, and we'll be watching that. And again, the forecast brings it north. Now, obviously, this is going to kick up the winds and the waves and the surf and everything in the western Gulf of Mexico, so keep an eye out for that. Again, just notice that this overall pattern here, you can see that being kicked up, and then if you look off the United States East Coast, you're going to see some double-digit wave heights in these areas as we get into Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of next week as well. For the rest of our area, we stay with the easterly trades, okay? Actually, we'll be a little bit calmer here in the far eastern sides of the Caribbean. Jamaica, Cayman Islands look pretty good. Not as much wind energy for the week ahead. What we'll have to watch out for is that disturbance that's back into the eastern side of the Atlantic right now and what this could possibly do. And of course, this time of the year, we've got more tropical waves to monitor. Another one is about ready to move off of the west coast of Africa. But overall, that's kind of the general scenario for us here. So let's go back to the island by island forecast for the weekend and get you guys settled for those who aren't going to have to deal with that. And thankfully, that's not a lot of our area. So I'm going to bring back up our reflectivity here. We'll switch over to the NAM and take a look at what the forecast should hold for you for the weekend ahead. So let's loop that up, hopefully. Now again, rich moisture will continue to feed into Central America. So Panama, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala, Belize, pretty darn good rain chances through tomorrow. A little bit less Sunday, Monday. Not completely dry though. This is the NAM, and you can see it's very broad and somewhat weaker on the NAM overall through Monday, but we'll try and get its act together after that. This is that area that's not going to develop, but there's a lot of rain that's still going to push into Texas and Louisiana. And I mention these areas a lot because I am concerned you're going to get the 1-2 punch, and it's already been raining extremely heavily there. This kind of weak west-east rain at the mid-levels there, kind of a trough. We'll try and pull in a few showers into the northwest Bahamas, but I don't expect there to be a lot of rain through Monday for Freeport, on over towards the Abaco Islands and Bebedy and New Providence and Eleuthera and Cat Island and Exuma and the Acklands. So enjoy the weekend, guys. A couple of scattered showers possible there. Turks and Caicos will pick up a few spotty showers over the weekend. Nothing too prominent. Cuba will start to get a little bit wetter again after a little bit drier day. I don't expect there to be a ton of rain for my friends in the Cayman Islands and Jamaica for the weekend. A couple of passing showers, but we're still being influenced by some of that drier air behind the disturbance. So it's going to be more isolated in nature than anything else. Chance for rain overall is going to be about 30%. We'll be to the 40 to 50% chance range over the Dominican Republic and Haiti. Again, we're closer to this broad spin right here. And we're going to get, in general, the farther east that you live, starting in the Dominican Republic, the wetter it's going to be. We'll get to a 50 to 60% chance for rain over Puerto Rico and the U.S. and British Virgin Islands for the weekend ahead. Is it a washout? No. But will rainfall be fairly widespread? Could it be healthy? Could it lead to isolated flash flooding? Absolutely. Is it still going to be breezy outside? Yes, it will. And then take a look at all of the potential wet weather expected for the Lesser Antilles, from Anguilla to St. Bart's, Barbuda, Antigua, St. Martin, St. Kitts, Saba, St. Eustatius, Montserrat, Guadeloupe, Dominica. Again, even though this area is not going to develop tropically. It's got a lot of tropical moisture associated with it, and the rainfall is going to be fairly widespread. And again, the NAM cuts off from Barbados south, but for the entire islands, and I'll go back over to the GFS now, for the entire islands, just get prepared for what's going to be some relatively wet weather over the next several days. Again, the GFS is not as robust here with this moisture, but I've mentioned this several times before, it just doesn't do great here on the eastern side of the Caribbean, I think, overall with some of these waves. But you get the idea that some of that will still be into play. Even though it's not going to develop, it's going to stay wet. Now you get as far west as the ABC Islands, and we're just talking about a couple of showers in the forecast for those areas. Here's your European rainfall forecast over the next 7 days. We'll animate it up. Again, look to the western areas. You can see that healthy rain. Look off towards the Lesser Antilles. Watch that rain move in. And again, this is just starting right now, okay? This is not accounting for any of the rain that has already fallen, but you look up towards the upper coastline of Texas and Louisiana, and it's an additional maybe 2 feet of rain, okay? That's what those purples are showing. If you notice on the bottom right-hand side of your screen, you see max 24.71. That means over the next 7 days on this view, there is a maximum total of over 24 inches. And there's a couple of spots here, here, and here where we're talking about that. So the European model, let's just say in general, is maybe painting on 18 to 24 inches of rain in some of these areas that will be impacted by the non-developing low, but potential depression or storm in the southwest Gulf, and then everything spinning up and moving north and east and back into the western Atlantic. Very healthy rainfall totals there. Very healthy rainfall totals for Central America and the Yucatan. Not as much as I mentioned for the Bahamas, Cuba, Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, portions of the Dominican Republic. You go farther east, Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, the Lesser Antilles, back down towards Nueva Esparta, rain chances are a little bit higher. Rain totals will be healthier. And they'll be more than what you're seeing on the European model because there'll be some localized heavy rain. A couple of spots are going to get 2 to 3 inches of rain in just one day. Friends, I appreciate you guys. You know, you can follow us anywhere across social media. We've got all the handles for you here: Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook. Again, you want to send me a picture or video to use in these YouTube updates, myMediaMundo@gmail.com. Appreciate you guys. Thank you for liking this video. Thank you for subscribing. You have a specific question about the forecast, all you got to do is drop it in the comments section below. Friends, have a great rest of your Friday. I'll see you soon with the latest right here at Meteo Mundo.